Hello, you are listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira.
Hi, I'm Tammy.
And I'm Thomas.
And today we're going to talk about starving the beast. Now, this is sort of, this is sort of one of those things where it depends on which side of the aisle you're on. And of course, we have the whole male versus female. And, all the females that I talk to anyway seem to feel like their ex is a narcissist. And all the men that Thomas talked to say, well, my crazy ex-wife calls me a narcissist.
Yeah.
And so,
But she's a drama queen.
Yeah. And so women are often labeled, borderline personality disorder, different things like that. And I think men are labeled narcissist a lot. And women are labeled narcissists too. And we're all narcissistic to a certain point.
You might be a narcissist.
I might be. You might be a narcissist.
I'm
that
not
might be my problem. You are an attorney after all. That's pretty much an interchangeable term.
Let me chime in if you would. In thinking about this problem, the question is you've got two otherwise normal people that for some reason have high conflict. And they have conflict around the children, and the conflict harms the children, and their attitudes towards one another harm the children. Right. Because when they're angry at the other spouse, the children can sense that, and they tend to align with whoever is whoever's caring for them. They align with that person, and they feel like they have to please that person and side with them against the other parent.
Right.
And this is a problem. And this is a problem that happens over and over again. And in my view, the people that are successful in breaking this cycle or this feedback loop are people that know how to behave and stop this. I guess what I'm trying to say is what I said in session one or in the very first podcast. This depends on you. It's tempting to point at the narcissist and say, he's doing this and he's doing that and he's driving me crazy and he lies all the time and he pushes my buttons and he's mean to the kids, and not look at yourself.
Right.
Okay. And by the same token, on the other side, from the guys you hear, well, she's alienating the children.
Right.
She's aligning them with her. She won't let me see them. She talks bad about it.
Right.
She manipulates, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as you're pointing towards someone else,
right,
you're not dealing with what you really have control over, which is you. And that's what I'd like to help people do, because there are some very easy ways to break this cycle that have nothing to do with what they're doing.
Right.
But have everything to do with how you're reacting.
Right. Right. And this is a lot of what I start working on when I start working with coaching clients. Is the issue is, even if the other person is crazy or they're a narcissist or they're borderline or they're a drama queen or they're whatever label you want to put on it, even if they are, the question isn't what are all the things that's wrong with them so that I can get the court to order them to stop behaving that way.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what we see a lot, or change how they are by, I'm just, a lot of the women I work with say are kind of like have this, their approach is to try to be logical. Well, if I just try to infuse my logic into this person,
right,
then they're going to change. And it's like, well, infusing the logic didn't work during the marriage, and this is where you are. So why do you have this concept that it's going to work now?
Right.
And when they are, the court obviously can't control that person's behavior. And so the only thing you really can control is you and how you react.
Right.
And you can change the relationship dynamic by changing what you're doing.
Right. I think you can flip the whole thing. And
right.
Whether you're on one side or the other doesn't
right.
matter.
Mm-hmm.
You can flip this. And I think we have to go back to a basic understanding of human behavior. And we have to say, why do people do what they do? Jonathan Edwards is an old theologian, but he's famous for saying that people always and in every case behave in accordance with their strongest inclination at the time of the behavior. And that's universally true if you think about it. Like if somebody points a gun at you and says, "Give me your wallet," then you have a choice, but your choices have been reduced to 2.
Right.
But you still have a choice. You can
I either run.
you can decide to withhold your wallet and die.
Right.
In which case the person still gets your wallet.
Right.
Or you can just hand it over and try to live. But it's not that you don't have a choice as to how to behave. So the reason I'm saying this is because there is a rationale for everything that other person is doing.
In their mind.
In their mind.
Uh-huh.
But it's not in their mind, it's in their heart. It's a payoff.
Right. I'm just saying, even though it doesn't make sense to you,
Right.
they have some rationale because when you say there's some rationale, it sort of could be interpreted as there's some rationale, you just don't know what it is. But it's not.
Right.
It's not that it's rational to you, it's that it's rational to them.
Well, it's not rational necessarily, though. It's just an inclination. There is something, if that narcissist is pushing your buttons, there's something there's some pleasure center in their psyche that's being triggered by that causes them to keep doing it, or they wouldn't do it.
And by the same token,
Yeah.
if you are continually getting sucked back into the beast's dynamic,
Right.
then there's some payoff for you as well.
Right. Yes, there is a payoff.
And this is a lot of what I talk about. Like I said, I have a course.
Yeah.
And in the very first module of that course, this is part of what I talk about is
Right.
What's the payoff for you? Because you can point the finger all you want to and say this person's a narcissist, this person's whatever label you want to put on that sort of what we're calling the beast, for lack of a better label. But when you are being reactive to them like that and you're doing all those things, there's some payoff for you.
Yeah.
And I can remember, I've told this story probably before if you listen to a lot of the podcasts, but I remember going into my therapist's office. I started therapy before the divorce was over, when I sort of knew it was falling apart and I didn't really understand fully what was happening. And I suspected my husband was having an affair, but I didn't have any proof at that time, and we were still together for all intents and purposes. And so I was seeing her, and she said she thought that he was probably having an affair or on the verge of having an affair. And once it kind of came out over the course of the first few months of seeing her that he actually was having an affair,
Mm-hmm.
he and I went in for one session. It was like at the very beginning. And I remember we were each sitting on separate couches. Like I was sitting on one couch, he was sitting on the other. And, I was ranting and raving about how he's hurt me and had affairs and done all these things and blah, blah, blah. And, she said, and I said, I know there's problems and I know I have some responsibility in this, but I'm not the person that I didn't cope with it by going off and having an affair.
Right.
And she said, do you feel like that makes you a better person than him? And I very emphatically said, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Right.
And this is way before, obviously this has been about 17 years ago now. So this is long before I gained any of this wisdom that we're trying to impart in this episode. And, the problem wasn't, that in itself was the problem for me. Do you feel like that makes you a better person? Yes. That was part of my payoff.
Right.
That was part of my payoff of being with someone.
It gave you a self-esteem boost.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Someone who was like this. I had, I got a self-esteem boost from being a better person that didn't do this, from, taking the higher road,
right.
or from, just
right.
him behaving poorly and me feeling superior, whatever it was. That was
it's kind of almost a martyr complex in a way.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like the guilt feels good, almost kind of like weird thing.
Like,
but
because you're a better person because
Right.
you didn't have the affair.
I didn't have an affair. That's
Yeah,
right.
I didn't leave you. I just,
Right.
So I would put.
I'm going to stay present and just be difficult to live with. I'm not going to go have an affair. Therefore, I'm a better person.
Right. And I think self-esteem drives the other person as well.
Right.
I think the narcissist is driven by a feeling that he needs to prevail in the situation emotionally. So this person is if I can reduce her, so the heart says, I don't think they do this calculus in their heads.
No. It's unconscious. Yeah.
Right. But the idea is if she's a quivering wreck, then that makes me look like
I'm the conqueror.
Yeah, or I'm the calm, sensible, logical one.
Yeah. That's what you do. You get like, I'm not saying you're a narcissist, but when we have arguments, a lot of times you get.
So you're calling me a narcissist?
You get super calm and like you have this condescending tone to your voice, and you just get super calm and rational. And it's like, I'm angry, and then you're like, well, that's really too bad, Tammy. If you,
it sounds like
you're really upset by this whole thing. Yes, I am. Like
right. So I'm lucky to be alive. In other words, I get that.
No, but but also I think when people, like in my particular situation where he had an affair, I think that's also part of the self-esteem boost. I think part of what happened is in the marriage, I started to have such disrespect for him in certain ways that the only place that he knew how to get that from was from another woman.
Yeah.
And so he went in search of that. And so that's part of what the affairs did for him, I think, is boost his self-esteem. And at the time, it's really hard because you have this feeling like, why is he doing this to me? Why is he hurting me like this? Why is he cheating on me?
Right.
But it took me, again, this is 17 years worth of learning. This isn't like the day after I went, this took a long time. But part of what I started to figure out is that those affairs really didn't have a lot to do with me.
Yeah.
They had to do with where he was at in his life. His best friend had died a few months earlier. I think he was in midlife crisis. This is just my personal opinion. Right. He was never diagnosed with anything. He's never been diagnosed narcissist either. But those things were ways of him boosting his own self-esteem and feeling better about himself. And they weren't really about me, but we tend to think that the other person is doing what they're doing to hurt us.
Right. And your gals and you and me, by the way, we all feel like we're fighting for our lives.
Right.
Why is that? And that's why the conflict is so heated. That's why it sometimes results in violence, because we're fighting for our very life. In other words, if you destroy my self-worth, you've destroyed me.
Right.
And so if you think about it, that's in a way the source of the conflict. But each one of us in a way is engaged in a pitched battle and the stakes are really high. And the thing is, the more you behave in a way that pays off his self-esteem, the more he's going to do it. If you increase the payoff, the beast gets bigger.
Right.
That's where the idea of feed the beast comes from.
Starving the beast.
Or starving the
beast. We're trying to starve the beast.
Not feed the beast.
Not feed the beast. But what most people are doing is feeding the beast.
Right. On both sides.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is why, like, one of the biggest things, the biggest areas I coach on, I would say, is communication with the other party.
Right.
So when people are in situations where they're using a Talking Parents or an Our Family Wizard or some sort of app for communication, a lot of my coaching clients, it'll be like, screenshot, here's what he said, what should I, or here's what she said, what do I say in response to this?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it is just learning to shut the argument down. So what people are usually guilty of on both sides is this back and forth argument of like, well, I feel this way. And I, for instance, like, let's say we took the kid to the doctor and, the kid has, strep throat and, needs a needs antibiotics. Okay, let's just say that's the example. Then what happens is people start where they're saying things like, I got him back today and he's clearly been sick for 2 or 3 days, but since you obviously don't care enough to make an appointment for him at the doctor, I went ahead and made an appointment and I took him in, and he in fact does have strep throat. So
they confirmed what I said.
They prescribed antibiotics, and I've been giving them to him for the last 3 days. And I know you don't really care if he, gets healthy or not, or you think medicine is all just a joke and you're probably too lazy and drinking and like whatever the accusation is. There's all kinds of accusations.
So he gets that message.
Yeah.
And he says,
you're probably not going to give it to me anyway, but I put it in the backpack.
Butthead.
Right. Right. And then he's like, well, you're so overprotective. The kid didn't even start running a fever till the night before. I thought it was viral. I didn't realize he had strep. I would have definitely taken him to the doctor. Like, it just becomes this whole big paragraph by paragraph conversation.
Right.
And most of it is just emotions. And like in the first instance, the initial message should have been, took him to the doctor, has strep, prescribed antibiotics, they're in his backpack. Please continue the regimen.
Right.
I've already given him one for today.
Right.
Period. And then what that does is it eliminates the other party's ability to have what I call a hook.
Yeah.
A hook to come back and argue with you about.
Right.
And if you are dealing with a high conflict personality, like a narcissist or,
a borderline
or whatever the other person struggles with, then that is even more so true.
Mm-hmm.
That you are giving them things that they can pick apart and argue with you about.
Right. And when he gets the former message, he feels superior to you because he's not the one that's coming unglued.
Right.
And so you usually get back this kind of derogatory, condescending stuff, which causes the other person to freak out. But what you really need to do is starve the pleasure center that allows him to feel superior.
Right.
And that is the emotional content that's in the communication.
Right.
See, he needs to feel like he's hitting a brick wall whenever he tries to find out what you're feeling.
Right. Right. There's a great concept in this stuff that's called gray rock. This is specific to the narcissistic.
I didn't make this up.
Part of it.
I thought I just came up with that just now.
Have you ever heard of gray rock?
No, I haven't.
You've never heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, all right. Well, let me just give you some edification as well as everybody else.
Yeah, because you're just smarter than everybody else, right?
Yeah. We all already know.
That's an example of what we're talking about, by the way.
Yeah. Of course I am. You already knew I was smarter than you.
That's true. That's true. That's why I married you, because you're smart enough.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to run things.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we talk about gray rock, one of the things that this concept does is it just helps you to kind of shut everything down, like I'm talking about, so that you're not perpetuating this continuing, emotional communication.
Now let me put my glasses on so I can see what
number one is never tell them you're using gray rock. I mean, that should be obvious, but this is what happens.
Yeah, I've gotten this new thing, and it's going to shut you down.
Yeah, I'm going to gray rock you so that I don't have to put up with you anymore. Yeah, no, you don't want to do that. So this is all about your actions, not your words. You don't need to tell them anything. This is what you do. Okay, it says don't talk to them unless you have to. So this means also like any communication, any messages, anything. So not just talking. Right. Don't tell them anything about yourself.
Right.
So, you don't tell them about, you have a boyfriend or you don't, or that you went out with friends last night, or that you're struggling with the kid, or you're, whatever's going on. You don't talk about anything that's going on in your world. That's all kept private. When you do talk, you only give very boring one-word replies. And I've had people do this. They say, well, we're in an app and we have to give a response within 24 or 48 hours. And I always say, if all that's in there is just this attack of you and there's nothing logistical at all to be dealt with, you can just say, receive.
Yeah.
You know, or, you know, if I got the message about the medication, it's in his backpack, please give it to him. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, will do.
Uh-huh.
You know, something along those lines. And then it says, be prepared. In this case, the gray rock, like I said, is kind of specific to narcissistic behaviors. But be prepared for the narcissist to step up their game. They will try to make you crack. And I see this so much.
Yeah.
When I first will start working with particularly, you know, women that are dealing with this, and they'll send a message to, or they don't respond in the same way to their ex. A lot of times what happens is they'll get flooded all of a sudden. Within like a 24-hour period, they'll get like 8 messages from the other person. And they're like, sometimes they'll call me and be like, Tammy, I thought this was supposed to make it better. This is like way worse than what was happening before.
Yeah.
You know, but what you have to do is we talked about
That's
this.
starve the beast.
You got to starve the beast. And we talked about this a few episodes ago where it's like you have a 3-year-old that's laying in the grocery store floor having a tantrum.
Yep.
You know, you walk away, you extinguish the behavior.
Right.
And that's what starving the beast is really about, is by limiting your responses to only logistical things, 1 or 2 words, very short, not giving them that hook. That will eventually shut them down. Yes,
and the thing is, when you try to starve the beast gets hungry.
That's right. And so that's exactly right. And so they'll ramp up, usually for a period of time.
Right.
But what I tell people is hold the line. You got to hold that line when they start to push back.
Right.
You know, it's like your defensive line, and you got to hold that line no matter how hard they're pushing.
Right. Right.
And if you can wait that out, my experience is on the other side of that. It stops. It stops. And then you have peace. And it's like,
wow.
I have so many people that say, oh my gosh, my stomach doesn't turn over every time I have a message now.
Right.
I don't feel this anxiety or stress about, oh my God, I got to answer this right now.
Well, that's got to hit some pleasure center.
Yeah. For you, yeah. Not for the other person, but yeah.
Right. And the same thing is true if you have somebody who's creating drama.
Right.
I've seen it go both ways. You know, I've seen the ladies do this, and they know how to attack. An attack I often see from the ladies is, well, this is just about money. This is not about the kid.
Right.
And you know, that can hurt a guy's feelings. And
yep.
But
sometimes it's about the money.
Right. Maybe he doesn't want to face that it's about the money. But it's about the money.
Right.
But in the end, she should not be communicating with him about how she feels about anything.
Right.
And I would advise him to do the same thing so that you have a very dry communication. There are things you have to communicate about.
Right. If you have children, especially. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I've got a teenager upstairs who is just angry, and we're struggling with his anger. So how would you have a communication about that if you're in a high conflict? I mean, what would you say?
Well, I might say something like, look, I don't, but you see, part of this involves being a little bit vulnerable, which I think is especially hard for people to do when they're dealing with somebody on the other side that's attacking them.
Mm-hmm.
But by being vulnerable, what you're doing is you're just, you know, if that communication ever goes to the court, to me, it shows that person's trying to problem solve.
Right.
If the other person takes it and stabs you with it on Talking Parents, well, then they're going to look like the idiot.
Right. If they come back and say, well, the reason he's mad is because of you.
Right. Right. Or if you hadn't done A, B, C, or D, you know. So like right now, if we were going to communicate with your son's mom about this issue, I would probably send a note and say something like, hey, I don't know about you, but I've noticed that he's struggling with anger, and I'm thinking maybe it would be helpful if we got him into a therapist.
Yeah.
You know, would you like for me to research and send you 3 names that you can choose from, or would you rather send me 3 and we'll pick?
Right.
You know, and just keep it like, I mean, you're going to communicate about it, but what do you want to do about it? I wouldn't communicate with her and just say, wow, he seems really angry. Are you noticing this? Is anything going on your end? I know there's nothing new on our end. I don't know. because that kind of communication.
That invites me to peer into your world.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it also would probably make her feel like, what are we digging for? What are you looking for? What's your game? You know, it would start making her feel like we have some agenda instead of being focused on helping the child. And so if you don't have some outcome that you're looking for, like, wow, the kid's struggling, we need to get him in therapy, then we communicate about the anger. If it's just dealing with the anger in our home, no, in a high conflict situation, I wouldn't communicate.
Right.
About
I agree with that.
Yeah. So you have to kind of, like, we have pretty high cooperation at this stage with your ex. I mean, we've been doing this 15 years. So I hope we've achieved some semblance of and peaceful communication.
And we've done it. We've done it precisely by applying, doing these things.
Doing exactly what we're
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like if you express, I'm concerned and I'm worried about Isaiah. He seems to be acting out.
Right. And that's really all.
I'm worried.
Right. But you don't express that worry unless there's something you're going to ask for. Is there some purpose in, like I said, you need to get him into therapy. You think he needs medication. You think he needs to go on a summer retreat with the church. You think he needs to, something that you're asking her to cooperate or participate or decision making.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's no point in
communicating. Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times
you just deal with it on your end and hope that she deals with it on her end.
That's right. That's right. And that's all you can do. And if they don't deal with it on our end, in our experience, what happens is over time, the parent that's not helping the child deal with the issues or whatever, that relationship will break down.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's usually what we see, and then the parent that has been trying to deal with it will be stuck with the whole.
Right.
Since you're responsible, you get the whole responsibility now.
So maybe we shouldn't say that I'm concerned.
Well, I think if you're going to ask for like therapy or something like that, I think that's a good thing to say, or if the child, I'm concerned, like one of my kids when he was little would tiptoe all the time. Yeah. So if I had joint legal at that time, this happened before the divorce, but if I'd had joint legal at that time and needed dad to participate in taking him to a doctor to have that checked, then I would say I'm concerned. Because what I'm concerned says is I'm worried about the child. This doesn't say I'm blaming you.
Right.
That's what it avoids. So you could say, I'm concerned because I noticed that, Kevin is tiptoeing all the time. I don't know if you've noticed this at your house, but I think it might be good to take him to an orthopedist and have it checked out.
Right. And when you're saying I'm concerned, you're really making a statement about what you're seeing, not you're not blaming, like you said, and that's the trigger for the borderline.
Right.
Is the blame and the loss of the fear that they'll lose connection.
Right.
So if you want to avoid trying to blame them like the plague.
Right.
And then when they blame you, which is what's going to happen, you have to kind of suck that up.
Right. Right. And try to stay focused on the specific logistical issues around what you're trying to solve.
How do you do that? I mean, how do you suck up this vitriolic, button-pushing, mean communication?
Well, you get into a support group.
You hire Tammy as your divorce coach.
You call me and complain to me. I mean, you have a therapist. You have, friends and family that you can, trust in with this, or you have some outlet where, you participate in a sport or activity, or you exercise, or you whatever your coping mechanism
Take drugs,
is.
Drink, alcohol.
No. Would hope we wouldn't do those things. I do think the support group has been it is very, very helpful. I mean, I think that the thing that a support group does around a specific issue like divorce and child custody issues is you realize that other people are all struggling with the same thing.
Right.
I mean, different variations on a theme.
Right.
Right. But when we're isolated in this, and divorce and child custody issues tend to be really private.
Right.
And so we a lot of times don't share with people around us, especially in the beginning when we don't we're kind of in that limbo. We're like, are we getting a divorce? Aren't we getting a divorce? Are we getting a divorce? Aren't we getting a divorce? When are we getting divorced? How soon? Is it happening now? Will it be later? Whatever. And so I think people tend to sort of, hold their cards close to their vest, so to speak, because it's uncertain. And so there's embarrassment. I was personally embarrassed at the
sense of personal failure.
Right. Yeah. At the sense of failure in my marriage. I come from a very strong Christian background, and divorces, even though my parents are divorce is kind of a no-no, overall in the family. And so it was a very, it felt, that was probably one of the hardest pieces for me to come to terms with, was just the feeling of personal failure, because now I'm a statistic like everybody else.
Yeah.
And that took me a long time to reconcile in my head. But, so I think that what happens is that, it's very, very private and things. And so it feels very isolating.
Right.
And you can feel like you're the only one going through it.
But once you get to start locking arms with all the other gals, suddenly
you figure out, oh my gosh, they're all, or you hear somebody else's story and you're like, oh, okay, mine's not so bad.
Like that.
A lot of them have that experience too, where somebody else is just dealing with something so unbelievable,
right,
that they think, wow, my ex isn't so bad. I think you had that experience.
Yeah, I used to think, that I had a really difficult ex, but really, in retrospect, she's been pretty easy to deal with,
right,
in most of the time.
Right, after hundreds and hundreds, and not that we haven't had things happen. I mean, we've had different things. We've had, CPS involvement at one point in the case. We've had all kinds of craziness happen, and the kids in and out of therapy, and just all kinds of hiccups in the relationship. So it's not that just, Thomas's ex has been, cooperative and everything's just been peachy keen. It's just that Thomas and I have tried very hard at every step to do things, intentional things that increase her trust in us.
Right. So the moral of the story is, you can change the dynamic.
Right.
You can, with your own behavior, interrupt the feedback loop that causes this behavior to continue and escalate.
Right.
And you do that by identifying what the payoff is for the other person.
And yourself.
What is the payoff for you in this dynamic?
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes two to tango.
Mm-hmm.
And then take away the payoff.
Right.
Starve the beast and get ready for the beast to get hungry.
Mm-hmm. And in recognizing your own payoff, be prepared to deal with that.
Right. Yes, that's true too.
Once I recognize that part of my issue is this makes me feel superior, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's a little embarrassing to even say. Yeah. I'm saying it on a podcast, so obviously a lot of people are going to hear it, but it's a little embarrassing to even say that made me feel superior. In retrospect, but at the time I was very adamant that it did. I didn't see the issue with that. But now I would be saying to myself, how can you get your self-esteem or that boost in a positive way?
Right.
Where can that come from that's positive, that doesn't involve being involved in this destructive
Maybe by starting a business and starting coaching
other women, right?
And being part of the solution rather than part of the problem. There's a lot of things. Doing good works does increase self-esteem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Really good. So, okay. So don't forget to starve your beast if you have one. And that's the only way to make
Which reminds me that I'm hungry.
It's the only way to make him go away. So I better feed my beast here, I guess, if I want to.
It's time to feed the attorney.
All right. So if you're listening to us if you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to rate and review us and click subscribe. If you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as more videos like this come out, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira. For more information, visit www.divorceuniversityonline.com.